Today's dedication is for Zahn, who gave me a very generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon. Tom Bombadil versus Sauron, Lord of the Rings, Garth One-Eye, and Shirei. Alright, well, we've got mana, so we can definitely get into our commander. We do not have any Sagas, which is strange in a Saga deck. But we do draw on our first turn, and I don't suppose there's anything wrong with ramping up to Chromatic Orrery. We'll have our commander in play by then, so we can draw 5 off it, so yeah, I think we risk this one. Alright, draw into a means of card draw with the Whirlwind of Thought, just get down a tap land. Alright, not seeing any spells be cast yet, and Skyshroud Claim is excellent, so we're going to have mana this game. I think we just go for a blue source in the form of a Tricycle land here and pass. No sense in playing out the Hex Parasite until we've got Sagas to manipulate with. Heartless Summoning for the black player. And then a Gateway Plaza, so I wonder if this is a gate themed deck. Alright, they tapped down the blue mana previously and now leaving it all untapped. Get into another enchantment in Estrid's Invocation, which will go very well on the Whirlwind of Thought actually. Go for Savannah, we'll fix more white and blue mana. Lightning Greaves for Shirei. Plane Cycling and Angel of Ruins in order to get into our planes. Okay, and went for a Godless Shrine with that, but instead deciding to play a Swamp, so going for Cycling a Dranith Slinger. So obviously that is in the bin now. Now we see Consider, Surveil 1 and draw. And then we see a Feed the Swarm, which will be one of the very few ways to get rid of an enchantment. And it's good to get rid of that from the black player, because I'm sure they'll be after killing off their 1 toughness creatures over and over again with Shirei. And throwing out a Faithless Looting after that, so maybe assume that there's no 2 mana counterspell that they want to hold up. They get rid of Rampaging War Mammoth and a Monstrosity of the Lake. Well, I'm glad to see the Feed the Swarm, because we're going after the Whirlwind of Thought here, I think. That mana crit makes a difference. Definitely want the planes first. So we can go for, as much as I want to go for Skyshroud Claim, we can go for the Whirlwind of Thought and the Estrid's Invocation here. Yes, and then we've got an island there for the Estrid's Invocation, so get down the Whirlwind of Thought. We're going to draw a couple of cards here, thanks to the rock. That is obviously a non-creature spell, so draw as a card. Gets us into a mountain. And then that can be another non-creature spell in Estrid's Invocation, and hopefully we'll get into a Saga at some point this game. So now, even if a Whirlwind of Thought does go down, we've got 2 of them now. A Burglar Rat, each opponent discards a card. That'll just have to be a basic for us, I think. And then a Dusk Legion Zealot after that. We'll cantrip Uro into play after this, and we see, I think they cycled an Angel Song at some point, so that was probably at the end of the black player's turn. Anyway, Uro gets a land into play, cycling a Dranith Healer as well. Still haven't played that Godless Shrine that they searched up, by the way. A Factor Fiction for the Grixis player. And they're targeting us, so we've got 2 select from here. Boon of the Wishgiver, Summons of Saruman, Lidless Gaze, Path of Ancestry, and an Arcane Signet, so they can have 2 of the mana cards together. And the Summons of Saruman, maybe? And that way we keep the 2 big spells away from them. So yeah, I think that's the way to go here. It's turn 5, so they've already played a land this turn, and that is a tap land, so not necessarily too worried about that, although I haven't seen the artwork on this before. And yeah, we managed to give them the mana. So Whirlwind of Thought, or the Flicker enchantment, going to try and flicker, we're not going to bother with that. Okay, and more mana in a Rampant Growth, so that's pretty much all we're getting into this game apparently. Drop the Bayou. Might as well go for it while we're getting ahead of our opponents, just hope for no mass destruction of artifacts or anything. Chromatic Orrery, and we draw 2 cards from that, and there is our first Saga in Phyrexian Scriptures, so maybe it's good that we haven't played any creatures yet. If we're going to be looking to wipe the board, maybe we'll see some commanders in the next turn or 2. Anyway, we can go for the Chromatic Orrery for a Skyshroud Claim, and if we get in some untapped lands, there are some more Sagas, Cruelty of Gix, and the Eldest Reborn. We will have 4 mana, so we want to at least Rampant Growth, I think. Yeah, we'll get some untapped lands because we don't know what we're going to draw into. Might get into even more ramp. So it can be a Tiger and a Tropical Island, and we'll likely be cycling triomes this game if we draw into them. So I'll leave the blue mana up. Let's go Rampant Growth. Draw 2 more cards. There's a Swords to Plowshares and a, maybe dead by now, Kodama's Reach. There aren't that many basics in the deck. And I know that some of the Sagas do grab them, one of which is a Plains, so I'll leave that in. Because I think it's this one. Yeah, that grabs a Plains, and there's another green one that grabs any basic as well. So just go for a Forest here. And then we're at 8 cards in hand, so I think I'll just discard the Kodama's Reach. Do have the World Tree to fix all of our colours now. Can't hold up the Swords to Plowshares, unfortunately, because I think we've only got a couple of means of white mana. Zulaport Cutthroat into play now. Haven't seen our opponent's commander yet. And there is a Bottle Gnomes that will dodge the Phyrexian Scriptures if we decide to go for that. Okay, a Bone Miser. Whenever you discard a creature, make a zombie. A land gives you double black, and anything else gives you a card draw. Seeing the land and the Arcane Signet from our opponent. So might be safe to assume that the Sauron comes into play next turn. We might be able to hold them off that with the Scriptures. Although, you'd be amazed at the number of people that play their commanders into this thing. Okay, another land for us, so definitely want the World Tree in play to fix all our colours so I don't have to think too much. I always like to avoid thinking if I can. And yeah, I think we do just go for the Phyrexian Scriptures. We can always have this opponent sacrifice Sauron with this. So let's get the black spell down. I forgot about the Orrery, actually. We could have spent mana in any colours anyway without the World Tree, so maybe should have got down an untapped land. But it's good redundancy anyway. Like to get down our tapped lands as soon as we can. 2 Whirlwind of Thoughts going to draw us 2 cards. Looks like our opponent's got a counterspell there. Alright, a Notion Thief is going to have to eat a Swords to Plowshares. So, damn it, and I was yielded through there, so our opponent got 2 cards off before he should have done. Yeah, we want to cast more spells after this. They're going to draw to the Swords to Plowshares, unfortunately. That's annoying. So do we just leave it and get down our commander? No, our commander won't be protected from this thing now, so I think we just have to go for the Swords to Plowshares at some point. Yeah, our opponent getting those extra 2 cards doesn't feel good. Obviously the Whirlwind of Thought isn't a May ability, so we do have to draw off those. Alright, yeah, I'm going to get as many Sagas into play as possible, so let's just go for the swords onto the Notion Thief. They'll just have to get the card draw here. It should have been 2 cards up here, of course. And then we'll go for Cruelty of Gix, and we'll have a look at this player's hand now that he's got 8 cards in hand. It's probably a good idea to see what he's got. Alright, so this time we get to draw a couple of cards, one of which is Scroll of Isildur. And Replenish is always good to have in hand in case someone does wipe the board. So we'll just put ourselves on chapter 1, we won't read ahead. And we're looking at the Grixis player's hand here. Hopefully take him down one of those cards that he drew into. Okay, a Cavern Horde Dragon. And a Siege Gang Commander as well, so I think we definitely get rid of the dragon there. Didn't take a good look at the rest of the hand there actually. There's a Command Tower, Thrill of Possibility, couple of lands. We knew about that already. Dragon Skull Summit. And there's the Siege Gang Commander, so their hand's not too stacked. So with the Hex Parasite, gaining control of the Lightning Greaves is probably going to be a good idea, so let's go for that here. It's also card draw, obviously. And we draw a couple more cards, Whirlwind of Thought doing incredible things for us. Gain control of the Lightning Greaves. And now we've got a Zeusert available to us as well. So could get down an additional land there. I don't think that's terrible actually. So we're really cycling through our deck quite nicely. There's an Enchantress that we really don't need. Cyclonic Rift as a board wipe. And the Saga triggers on chapter 1 so we can make an additional land, get down the Arid Mesa. And there we are at 7 cards in hand, so let's go for a Hex Parasite. And we'll put the Lightning Greaves on the Hex Parasite. And the good thing about this is because our commander only triggers once, we would have it see, as it stands now, all these Sagas go down at once and it would only replace one of these 4 Sagas. So what we want to try and do is manipulate the chapters to our advantage. So for instance, I can take the counter from this and keep hold of this Lightning Greaves that we've got. And that way we get to stagger which of the Sagas gets sacrificed when. So as long as we can keep the Hex Parasite in play, it should be a really good ability for us that has. So there's Shirei, Shizo's caretaker. Well, they don't have a sack outlet at the moment, could get into a carrion feeder or a viscera seer. And there it is. So sacrificing the bottle gnomes will put a plus counter on the carrion feeder. It will trigger the Shirei to bring it back. Also drain us with the Zulaport. And then the burglar rat, so that will come back and have us discard as well. Yeah, so starting to wish that I hadn't played the Hex Parasite now. We could have not had our entire hand discarded. We'll discard 3 cards to the rat, because it will be 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. Another on our turn if we don't deal with their commander. Sacrificing the Zulaport as well. Although all these creatures will be wiped out apart from the bottle gnomes by the Phyrexian scriptures, so maybe we just have them play into the board wipe. So the burglar rat enters, and we will discard a mountain. We have to suspect that this will happen on each of our opponent's turns as well, like we said. A couple of black mana being made by the 3 colour player after discarding a Bajuka Bog. And then Dusk Legion Zealot enters and draws them a card. And Zulaport will enter after that. Cycling a Triome will effectively pay for itself. Will only go down 1 mana because the Bone Miser triggers for 2 mana with that being discarded. Obviously they draw a card to the cycle. And now Shirei starting to do the Shirei things. So obviously everything will come back here at the beginning of the end step. And now we see a Quakefoot Cyclops being cycled. Target creature can't block this turn when you cycle it, and they've gone after the Shirei. I don't think that really matters. They make themselves a zombie token by discarding a creature. Okay, and then the mono black player scooping, so I don't know if that was, yeah, well I don't know what that was. I mean, he might not have thought he was going to win, but he was having an effect on the board, having us discard cards, but I suppose it's only us 3 that would care about that, so if none of us have to discard, then we're in no worse off a position, I suppose. A Lotus Field for our opponent will have to sacrifice 2 lands here. Our opponent's setting up an Eerie Ultimatum very nicely here. We have that in this deck as well. The 4/4 swinging in towards us. We don't have the Lightning Greaves anymore, so yeah, definitely not going to block with the Hex Parasite. Alright, Summons of Sauron that we gave our opponent before is now being targeted at some instants and sorceries. Oh, it doesn't target yet. They'll amass the Orcs first, then mill, then cast an instant or sorcery. And then our opponent milling shows us the Desolate Lighthouse, Troll of Khazad Dûm, a Swamp, Treasure Nabber, Everflowing Chalice, and Mind Stone. Decided not to cast anything from that by the looks of it. Okay, so that plays scooping as well. I assume that's a shame scoop because I think they could have done something with this. Anyway, I'll go for the Hex Parasite, and I'll remove a counter from this one, I think, because we don't have an artifact to keep control of with the Scroll of Isildur now. So it's 2 Phyrexian. So it's 2 life to the Phyrexian and 1 mana going into that. And like I said, this way we're staggering the enchantments that are going to get sacrificed into the Bombadil. Could now flicker the Whirlwind of Thought onto another Saga, but I don't think it really matters. I think we'd rather keep our awesome card draw engine here. Alright, so that's a mana confluence we don't have to take life to, thanks to the World Tree. We gain 3 life to Azusa's Many Journeys. We'll put the destroy creatures on the stack first so that we can target with the scroll, which I don't think is relevant actually, but we'll do it anyway. And then we search our library for a card and put it into hand. And we could do that every turn, every one of our turns, thanks to the Hex Parasite, as long as we can keep the life, which is a bit of a combo. We could gain 3 life from this and lose 3 life from that. Anyhow, maybe we just go for the Eerie Ultimatum to put all of our things back into play straight away, just in case our opponent gets to do something here. Because we do have to beat our opponent with damage. We can't win in any other means of combos, I don't think. We do go down to 20, so let's play a land. We will get Tom into play for the first time this game. And that will be indestructible with hexproof thanks to the sagas that we've got going here. So shall we just play the Eldest Reborn for the fun of it? So I think we just hold up mana for the Hex Parasite now so that we don't have to take too much life to it. Maybe get down the Satyr Enchanter as well. Yeah, I think that's fine. Got a massive surplus of mana now thanks to the incredible draws that we've made this game. getting into all that mana early on, and then into the Whirlwind of Thoughts was, yeah, well, that's about as lucky as it gets, really. So maybe remove the counters from this now, so that we can buff the Hex Parasite, and we will be able to wipe the board every single turn this way. So 3 mana from the Hex Parasite going into this thing, so that will have no counters on it, and we'll be able to protect from the board wipe on our next turn. Okay, and it didn't remove them for some reason. Am I doing something wrong? Okay, whatever. We'll do it at the end of our opponent's turn. We'll try to. Probably some goofy Magic Online thing where I had to select something differently. But we can do that at instant speed during our upkeep if we want to, so that we don't go into the main phase and trigger those things. One thing I'm not sure about with the Sagas is... does the... when does it check to see if it wants to sacrifice itself? Could we go to the 3rd chapter and then remove a counter with the ability on the stack, and then it doesn't sacrifice? That I'm not sure about. I don't really know much of anything about Sagas. Alright, awesome. And now you can see why I went for the Eerie Ultimatum, so I know what we're doing next turn. Yeah, we can't draw a bunch of cards with this now, so I think we just allow that. Oh, our Tom's actually indestructible and hexproof, isn't it? So that will stay in play anyway, but I would have put that in the bin ready to reanimate. Might be that our opponent's got some means of countering the Eerie Ultimatum. Maybe it's best to go for the Replenish first. But now we're seeing why having the World Tree in play as some redundancy is a good idea. And we're also seeing why our 2 opponents shouldn't have scooped, because there's an Akroma's Vengeance, and for all our opponents know, we don't have a means of reanimating things here. Unfortunately for them, we actually do. Alright, I'm going to go for the fun play of Eerie Ultimatum. We can always replenish after the fact. So Eerie Ultimatum, going to return any number of permanents with different names. Pretty much all the cards in our graveyard and in the entire deck are going to have different names. Alright, yeah, so our opponent's scooping there because he obviously didn't have a counter spell for us, but that would have been everything in our graveyard coming straight back. Our opponent would have been back to square one pretty much with the little Hex Parasite and Phyrexian Scriptures combination. We would have been wiping the board of creatures every turn pretty much. Although it didn't actually work there, I have to learn how to actually use Hex Parasite on Magic Online, because Magic Online isn't the most intuitive program. But if you want to see more from this Tom Bombadil Sagas deck, then be sure to let me know. Massive thank you to the patrons for their constant support as ever. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.